Okay, moving on to the next segment of today's show. I had to address it. I'm sure you guys have all heard it, but after Duke lost on Saturday to Louisville, they dropped to a record of 5-5, but that wasn't really the main storyline coming out of this game. The main storyline coming out of this game was Mike Krzyzewski, the head coach of Duke, and his post-game interview. And most notably, he got asked a question by a student reporter that went viral on the internet. And before I try to paraphrase it, before I give you guys my opinion, I just wanted to play you guys the exact audio so you could hear it for yourself. I didn't want to cause any confusion, and then I'm going to give you my main takeaways. So here we go. I'll hit it.
Hi, Coach. I'm just curious as to what the next step forward here is for the team as you guys move into another week of basketball.
Yeah, why don't we just evaluate this game? I'm not into what our next step forward is right now. We just finished a hard-fought game. I don't know if, what's your major? What's your major at Duke? What's your hardest class?
Econ.
Okay, so say you just had the toughest econ test in the world, and when you walked out, somebody asked you, "What's your next step?" You see what I mean? You have some empathy and just give us time to evaluate this game, and then we'll figure out, just like we always try to do.
All right, I gotta say this. I'm really disgusted because there are so many different reasons why Mike Krzyzewski had no reason at all to give that response. And I'll start off by saying this. In the simplest of terms, I thought the question that the student reporter asked was super valid. Duke is coming off their 5th loss of the season. Number 5. That is something that in January, Duke fans are obviously not used to. And in an even more basic and simpler sense, when you lose a game like that, isn't that usually one of the first questions that comes up? Your team lost. Why did your team lose? What exactly does your team need to do in the future to get better? That is the most simplest question that basically every coach in the country gets asked after a loss. And the fact that Coach K went off like that, he had no reason to. Not at all. It was a totally valid question. That is a question that, as a losing coach, you probably get asked each and every game. That was ridiculous. My next question is, the fact that Coach K was out here comparing this loss against Louisville, and I get it, Louisville's a top 25 team. They're a solid basketball team. But this isn't the Olympics here. This isn't the USA losing to Team France and Mike Krzyzewski being asked in 4 years, what exactly does your team have to do in order to get better? No, this was an ACC game against Louisville, who once again is a good team. But Louisville is not, the best college basketball team of all time. They're not 2016 Villanova or 2009 North Carolina. They're Louisville. He has no reason to compare that to an econ test or whatever he said, the hardest econ test at all. And that's an issue I have. Also, when it comes to the media, right, I totally understand that when I'm breaking down Mike Krzyzewski's answer, I don't want to defend or compare his response to a student reporter or to, a veteran reporter or based on race or anything like that. But the bottom line is, I feel like all of us who are in the media have been in this position before. When you're interviewing a legend like Coach K, and we all know just how accomplished of a basketball coach Mike Krzyzewski is, there's no reason for you to just add pressure like that. Because to me, what Mike Krzyzewski was doing was reflecting all of his anger and reflecting all of his frustration. After this loss to Louisville, he was taking out that frustration on the student reporter. And all the student reporter did was ask him a totally valid question. I don't get it. I really don't. And what even bothers me more is the fact that if this was another reporter that was asking him this question, right? Whether it would be his guy Dick Vitale or his guy Jay Billis or his guy Jay Williams, there is zero way he would have answered this question like that. And I understand there are a lot of times where people try to defend the media, and I'm just not about it at all. I'm someone that was very critical of the media and the fact that they really, I think, tried their best to get college football season canceled without knowing all of the proper facts, without knowing the real effects mentally that canceling the season possibly would have on student athletes. I'm not saying here that the media is 100% perfect and that the media never deserves criticism, but this was a totally valid question. And I don't understand what Coach K was trying to accomplish here besides just taking out his frustration on the poor student reporter. I have come on this show many times throughout this college basketball season and has spoken about Duke and everything exactly that has gone wrong with this team so far this season. But you guys do realize that out of all of the teams in college basketball, Duke was one of the last teams in the country to bring their team back for summer workouts because Mike Krzyzewski wasn't 100% sure that there was going to be a college basketball season when meanwhile basically every other team in the country was in the gym and getting ready to play. And I said this since the whole thing went down with Nate Oates at Alabama. If you remember, Mike Krzyzewski a couple weeks ago when Duke lost to Illinois, he was in the news because he said, oh, Duke is just canceling the rest of their non-conference slate because he doesn't think it's safe for Duke to travel out of league and non-league games. Well, bro, my question is this. If you're so concerned about that, why are you even coaching in the first place? And I get it. Coach K is a guy who is pretty old, and he's a guy that if, God forbid, he was exposed to the coronavirus, I totally understand why he would be concerned. But at the same time, if that is really the case, and I said it at the time, why are you trying to cancel the season? Why are you trying to ruin it for everyone else? Just because you want the season canceled, okay, that's fine. I just don't understand why you had to ruin it for everyone else. He just shouldn't have coached if that was the case. Mike Krzyzewski is one of the most well-respected coaches in the game, and he's a guy that has been through these press conferences, especially after a loss, so many times throughout his career. He's been doing this for so long, he knows how to give a respectful answer after a loss. But a student by the name of Jay Piazza, who's writing for the Duke Chronicle, he asked him a totally valid question. And this is a Duke team that has lost 3 straight games. So something is clearly wrong with this Duke team. And clearly, after their last 2 losses before this game, there was something wrong with this program. And clearly, Coach K didn't know how to fix it after the loss against Pittsburgh. And when he was asked the same thing, he just let him have it. Instead of answering his question, Coach K decided to just roast him. And it was a surprising response to a totally reasonable question. We all know what it feels like to be working in the media. And any college coach that is talking to the media after a loss, I understand it's not the number one thing they want to do. But every college coach treats the media who asks them a appropriate question with respect. But when people consider Mike Krzyzewski a leader of men, you just got to think about nights like this where he makes an absolute fool out of himself. And I don't get it. So soft for not being able to handle a legitimate question like that. And if I was a kid, I'm a college student. I am trying to get into this media industry. And if I'm a college student and I ask one of my professors, what exactly did I do in order to get that response? I don't think a professor at Duke or really a professor anywhere would be able to give a legitimate answer. And I understand that the college basketball media and the college basketball world has been pretty harsh on Coach K for this, but I gotta be honest, I think it's rightfully so. And for a student reporter to ask a totally valid question like that and get that kind of response, are you kidding me? I don't get it at all. And when you're looking at everything that went on during this weekend of college basketball, I was not originally planning to talk that much about Duke and just how bad of a basketball team they are right now. Because let's face facts, 5-5 and losing to Pitt and losing a game against Louisville that you easily could have had, and also losing to Virginia Tech, a team that before the season started, everyone picked for you to be significantly better than, that is an absolute joke. Duke also still doesn't have a quality win on their resume right now. They're 0-3 on the season against ranked teams. They're 0-5 against teams ranked inside Ken Palm's top 25, and the loss against Louisville didn't help matters at all. Now, they have upcoming games against Georgia Tech and Clemson, and that could be a nice spot to get right for Duke, but it's time to really establish Duke as a team right now that is not very good, and a coach that, let's face facts, didn't handle that post-game press conference the right way at all. And once again, I'm a guy that rarely defends the media. But the fact that he got this upset over such a basic question like that really just pisses me off. I'm not going to lie. And I understand that since he's apologized for it, I get it. But to be honest, I'm not necessarily sure if he does apologize for that, if the media and everyone else doesn't respond with this kind of backlash. This is a guy that, with the handshake incident with Dylan Brooks, we know what happened there. He did the same thing to a Virginia Tech player before that, and it doesn't even make sense. Trying to tie a road game against Louisville to the hardest economic test you've ever seen, that's absolutely ridiculous. And let's keep in mind also, there was one response to the Mike Krzyzewski quote that still has me on the floor rolling laughing, and it was that the response was basically, Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K, when you say, after your econ test, what did I do? I'll tell you what I did. I just smoked a bunch of weed and drank some Bud Lights. That was the best response I've ever seen. It was something like that. And to be honest, I just don't understand how after a loss, when a reporter asks you, what do you have to do next game to get better? That is the response you come up with. I really don't get it at all. Mike Krzyzewski had no reason to respond like that, and I understand why his players are coming to his defense. I understand that of everyone in the media, we haven't been around Coach K as much as they have. I totally understand that, but at the same time, that still doesn't make it right for the quote he made and the quote that he gave us after Duke's loss against Louisville on Saturday. And I totally understand that prior in the last couple of years, there have been plenty of coaches that have been unfairly criticized by the media for being tough. The first one that comes to mind was Tom Izzo a couple of years ago when he was on the sideline screaming at Aaron Henry and everyone started going nuts. And even Aaron Henry himself was like, guys, he was just yelling at me. I trust Tom Izzo as a leader. I trust Tom Izzo as a coach that will make me better. But this was not the same case with this Coach K situation at all. What an absolute joke. And I think he really does deserve the criticism that he's getting.